So, hi there, everyone. This is Adrienne Somerville and Michael Taylor streaming in from our very own StreamYard sponsored TTSC Career Communications STEM City. I know that's a lot. Excited to chat with you this morning. I'd like to introduce just very quickly, and then I'll defer to Michael. Always my COO, Mr. Michael Taylor, who leads TTSC with me. And then we have a special guest, and Michael is just going to, he's thrilled to introduce her, so no more delays.
Absolutely. This is my longtime friend, Miss Erica Parker. So glad to have her here today. She is a senior talent acquisition advisor with over 25 years of experience in human resources, and she focuses on recruitment, retainment, and so much more. And so we're so happy to have you, Erica. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here with you guys again. This is always fun to connect and to talk about talent acquisition and what's happening in the world of career and job searching. So thanks for having me this day.
We're so happy to have you. And as a lot of our viewers are watching, they are interested in uh, what it takes to get a job and what is talent acquisition, what
hmm
is talent management. Can you just elaborate just a little bit on what is talent acquisition? When people hear that word talent acquisition, what does that actually mean?
it's really simple. I know talent acquisition, it sounds like, this big, complex thing, but really my role as a talent acquisition advisor is to really be a bridge. I'm a bridge between an employer who is seeking talent, they're seeking skills, they're seeking a particular a professional to complete a job, and then the candidate, the person seeking a job, the new grad, the transitioning administrative assistant, the new engineer, what have you. And my goal is to bridge that gap and bring those two together. At the core of every single business is talent, it's its people. That's the only way that a business is going to be successful. So it's very important that a company has a really good talent acquisition process. They understand talent, they can articulate their talent needs. And then my role is to then find out what they need and then go hunt and go help and coach the professional in order to be successful in getting that hire. It's really simple and I love it. I've been recruiting for many years. We used to be called recruiters back in the day. When I
Mhm.
first started out, we were recruiters, but over the years, we have transitioned into talent acquisition because it really is finding talent. It's more than just recruiting. It's really honing in on that talent that an individual possesses, whether it's experience or it's their education or it's just natural abilities and talents. And we hone it, craft it, and hey, voila, a career opportunity for you.
I love it. I'm really glad you defined the difference between recruiters and talent acquisition
hmm
managers and leaders because for years it was like recruit, recruit, recruit. Oh, I have to go talk to the recruiter. And then this word kind of morphed, talent acquisition. And
hmm
people were trying to like see what the subtle differences or bold differences were
Right.
between. So I thank you, Erica, for
Oh,
making
you're welcome.
that
Yeah.
distinction.
hmm
I agree with you. The core of every organization is its talent. And I think the other good thing, and feel free to correct me here, there's a lot of data behind hiring and recruiting. And we're not just fit fill, right? We lose someone, we put someone in the spot. We lose someone, we put someone in the spot. I think the whole talent acquisition thing, it's a huge data component to that, correct?
There is, and it starts from, usually in your finance department of a large organization. They're looking at the bottom line, they're looking at numbers. But what's also important is the head count and what money is allocated for the entire organization to function
Mhm.
properly using talent. So before a requisition is even created, before they say you can hire, there is some data that is
Mhm.
analyzed using, what type of products and service the company has, what
Yeah.
is their turnaround time, how many people do they need to make sure that it gets done effectively, and then within each department, they're given at what we call a head count.
Mhm.
And for the year, department 001, which is the marketing department, they may have a head count based on the analysis of 2 people for the entire year. So those markers are really important for leaders because leaders look at the big picture and they say, okay,
Mhm.
this is where we can hire, this is where we can use our resources. And every department almost kind of gets a lottery. Like you get 3, you get
Mm.
5. Oh, this department in engineering, because we have so much work and the needs, you're going to get, 10 head count. I know, I know it's kind of, you don't want to call people head counts or heads, but that's basically what it is.
Head counts,
It's
butts and seats.
butts
Yes.
and
Yeah.
seats, but that's what it is. It's a head count. So yes, that starts even before I get involved in the process at all.
But
It's
that data,
those numbers.
those data analytics, say for example, you don't need to hire anyone. Are
Hmm.
these continuous data analytics that are occurring to count the butts and seats to ensure
Yes.
that everything is still? I mean, how often do they
It's
run
checks
these?
and balances. And yes, you have people in your finance team that are assigned to make sure that they're running these analyses every
Mm-hmm,
month.
hmm.
And again, depending upon, let's say the head count was a little bit higher than they anticipated, they'll make adjustments throughout the
Hmm.
year.
Mhm.
And and there are times when I'm working with hiring managers and they'll say, we need to hurry up and fill this position before I lose it.
Hmm.
Because they
Mhm.
realize that, hey, there's going to be constantly changing on this. So it is pretty important for managers when they do get released a headcount, they're ready to go. And they know that, okay, if I don't fill this within, several months, there may be a possibility that another group has a greater need and we may lose our headcount and we'll go to someone else.
Right. I authored a book, Wingspan: Gaining Corporate Dominance, and it's about talent management. And that's exactly what I discussed in the book. It's one of those where you have to fully understand like your products and services.
Mm-hmm.
And then, what market sectors you're interested in, what's sunsetting. Sometimes things we're going to get out of a business sector too, right?
Right. Right.
Skills have gotten obsolete. So we're
Mm-hmm.
not going to replace certain people in the organization that had said skills because we're focusing more on electric cars. I'm just going
Yes.
to give that example. So I'm looking more at electrical kind of engineers or battery engineers,
Mm-hmm.
specialists. So I think it's important to understand that hiring piece, that talent acquisition piece, is extremely important, and that it is a fact-based decision based on data analytics to proceed.
Yes.
It's so funny. Michael and I had a conversation with someone yesterday, and this is very timely. I love these timely conversations. And he was talking about, getting the right person in terms of culture, even.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes you have the technical expertise, and we go out as talent acquisition individuals and we bring, we see the resumes, it's just
Hmm.
impeccable. How are you assessing in that role that the right fit fill exists because culturally, right, the soft
Yeah.
skills are there, or they will naturally do well in an organization?
Yeah. So it's funny. You're right. Timely conversation. Just yesterday, I was on a debrief meeting with a group of engineers. These are professionals who had completed an interviewing process with one of the candidates that I presented. And this is a staff level analog audio engineer position. It's a highly visible role within the organization that I'm hiring for. The candidate went through a phone screen with me, a video interview with the hiring manager, another interview with another technical lead before we brought the candidate into the office for the panel interview, the tour,
Mhm.
to meet everyone. So we get in the debrief, and everyone's saying, "I want to say this. Technically, this guy is great. Like he's wonderful. He answered all the technical questions. He knows his digital. He knows his
Mhm.
analog." They were all saying that. They were like, "But there was something, like he seemed bored. He seemed, you
Mhm.
know,
Hmm.
he eye contact wasn't there. So
Hmm.
all of these responses about how great he is technically, but they
Mhm.
were concerned about, and that was the question from the chief engineer,
Hmm.
is he a good cultural fit? Like,
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
we have a really good team where we all collaborate, we work well together. They even
Hmm.
took the guy out to lunch, and during their lunch with him, they said that he wasn't. engage with them. His phone rang a couple of
Mm.
times and he answered it.
Oh.
You know, um, and they were like, he just didn't seem like he cared that we were taking him to lunch. Like he was just
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
they are, although technically he checks all the boxes. This guy can do the job. They even said that he can do the job.
Hmm.
Mhm.
But is this the type of person that we
We
want
want,
on our team?
yeah,
Right.
Will he fit in the
Right.
culture because they all get along? And you know what? They don't have to be best friends, but they were
Right.
right,
concerned about his interpersonal skills. And will
right.
he disrupt the order and the camaraderie that
Mm.
they have going on in the team?
Mhm.
So after all those great remarks and comments about his skills and what he can bring, they're questioning whether or not to hire him.
Mhm.
Right.
As they
So what
should.
they yeah, and so what they want to
Yeah.
do is they want to do another assessment. They want to invite him in because over the phone he was great with me. He was also good with the hiring manager on video. When we got him in person, in house is
Mhm.
when it kind of fell apart for him.
Ah.
Mhm.
So, culture is it's a
Hmm.
showstopper for
It
real.
is. Well, for the people that are watching our video right now, and they may wonder, well, why didn't I get that job? They should realize that, it's not just the skills, but it's, how you fit in with the team.
Mhm.
They have an existing team, and if they don't think you're going to be a good fit, you may not get that job. You might have the best resume in the
Best
entire
resume.
world, but if are not going to fit in with this team, and nowadays we do everything in teams, right?
Mhm.
You
Everything.
always, even if you are the head of your organization, you still have to work with your team that you work with. And so if there's no synergy there, if
Mhm.
there's no camaraderie,
Hmm.
if you just don't feel the connection with that person, I wouldn't hire them. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
and people may be wondering, how come I didn't get hired? That may
Right.
be one of the things. You just didn't fit
Absolutely.
in.
But
Mhm.
that's why I always say you got to do the lonely work. When you're going in, this is like I'm going in to apply for a position at TTSC. I should be doing some assessment on the culture, right? The leaders,
Mhm.
the dynamics, read up on the bios of the leaders, the companies that they worked for
Absolutely.
even previously, and then gauge because sometimes you might not, it just might not be an organization for you.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I love that as a talent acquisition leader, that you all are considering that too. But you said something that made me pause for a second. On the phone, sometimes we come across in this virtual environment a certain way,
Yes.
but then in person, slightly different.
Totally different, right?
Yes. So, how are you as a talent acquisition leader, renowned in your field, balancing that? Because we still have a group of people that are like, I am comfortable behind my computer. If I never meet anyone face to face
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
my work environment, it's still great because I'm just that cool. And I'll pick on engineers. I love engineers, by the way. I think you all rock. My son's majoring, but you're just such a great, easy target to pick
Yeah,
on in
absolutely.
our STEM world, right? And we are on STEM City. And so sometimes they're very reserved, and they like being technical in their space and don't really need that whole interaction. My son is a social butterfly, so he's an anomaly, but the some don't. So how are we managing that in terms of, we don't want to miss out on the good talent.
Absolutely. And that was one of the discussions in the debrief yesterday is, some he may be an introvert. We talked about all those different things because you're
Mhm.
right. Engineers are easy targets. I have two brother-in-laws who are engineers and just dry personality. They're not like your son, just hard to pull information out, but they're
Mhm.
brilliant. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's part of a process that we take with the whole recruiting cycle. So even though I may be just on the phone, the next time we engage with the person, we do video. And then
Okay.
from the video, you can get a sense of a person's presence, that that buffer on between the phone is no longer there because you're actually
Mhm.
visually seeing the person. And
Mhm.
I do like to encourage my hiring managers when they have the opportunity to invite the candidate into the office, even if it's just a meet and greet, to take them to lunch, a quick, let's shake hands.
Mhm.
I think it's really important. But in today's world, with so many people working remote, it is becoming harder and harder to have those in person. So we have to do the best that we can with StreamYard, with Zoom, with the Microsoft
Right.
Teams platform, with Slack, all of those platforms that we have. It's really important. And one of the things that we can do is just, as a recruiter, I do coach my
Mhm.
candidates when they're doing video interviews. Before we started, you saw me kind of adjusting here and there. We
Mhm.
want to make sure you don't have a lot of clutter. You want to make sure that
Mhm.
you've got good lighting. You want to make sure that, because all those things do matter. And unfortunately, the world that we're in, it's a virtual world.
Mhm.
So it makes it more difficult. Not impossible, but it makes
Mhm.
it it's more work on the hiring manager, more work on the recruiter, more
Mm.
work, that we do consider, um, even language barriers. Over the phone, an individual who's from a different country or, has a heavy accent, it's harder to understand them over a phone, but it gets easier when now we get in front of them. We can read their
Mm.
lips, we can see. And then when you get in person, it's even more. So we have to take all
Mhm.
those different
Mhm.
things in consideration as we're recruiting and when we're making assessments, because we want to be fair to people, right?
Right.
Everybody is not going to be extrovert. Everyone is not going to be talkative like the three of us. Like we can just
Right.
go and we can talk. We can talk
Exactly.
all day. But you take someone else based on their culture, their upbringing,
Mhm.
their
They're
who
nervous.
they're nervous already being in an interview. So all those factors play when we do give assessment, to candidates, and that's the reason why that candidate yesterday is getting another opportunity, because we're
Yeah.
going to
Good.
dig a little bit deeper because he's a great candidate. He's
Good.
a he meets the expectations of the role. He's
Mhm.
highly skilled. So now we're going to dive in a little bit deeper and see, is he going to disrupt what's happening, or is he the type of person that just, let me just sit in my corner and I'll
Mhm.
support you guys,
Mhm.
and we've got to determine
Yeah.
that before we extend an offer to him.
So do when you talk to those candidates, do you like maybe crack a little joke or kind of, just to see,
Yeah, want to break
how
the ice.
yeah, and
Absolutely.
you do. And so what's the key indicator that okay, this guy's a good fit?
Oh, it's gonna take a lot, and I'm
Mhm.
gonna I'm gonna coach the next group. So the chief engineer asked if we can add, two other individuals that are part of the group. They're not
Mhm.
engineers.
Mm.
One of
That's
them
good.
is, I think one of them is an admin, but she works with the team, and another person. So I'm gonna coach them, and we're gonna craft questions and scenarios to see
Mhm.
how much of a team player is he a disruptor, is he one who
Mhm.
will be combative and, bored if he's given a task that he feels, because he's sharp. And they
Right.
kind of felt like he's going to get bored. Like he seemed like he was bored in the interview. Like we would ask him a question and he would answer it, but he would just answer the question. There was no like excitement,
Thought.
no, and
Yeah.
so they were worried. So we're going to craft questions around there. And then from there, we're just going to again listen to one another and decide, based on his response, is this going to be the right fit for the role? It's case by case, Michael.
Yeah.
It's so difficult. You're dealing with people. You're dealing with
Mhm.
people, and
Right.
oftentimes you do have to use wisdom and discernment too. We can't
Right.
take the human aspect out of what we do in our decision making.
Yeah.
So that's why, having the debrief meetings, going over the
Mhm.
questions, how do they respond, sometimes even recording. We don't like to
Mm.
Mhm.
record a lot of our interviews, but we
Right.
have. And if
Yeah.
the candidate gives permission, we'll record so that we can look back and see.
Mhm.
So what are some of the good tools? I know we're coming up on May, so we'll have a lot of college graduates. A lot of people tend to move in the summertime too. So even some journeymen, mid-level career people relocating, where should they be going in today's environment, to look for opportunities where, there probably are acquisition talent managers and acquisition professionals kind of coming in on the other side working with organizations?
hmm So as a job seeker, you're asking where should they go? Where should they start?
Yeah, for opportunities.
For opportunities, I really, number one for me is network.
Hmm.
Summertime is coming. We know we're approaching. You had mentioned your son. I love that. He's an engineer. Mom, you know some people. So
Hmm.
let's sit with son and let's talk about who we know. You
Hmm.
want to be an engineer, son? These are the people that I know. You remember your aunt Susie? You remember that neighbor that when we lived over,
Hmm.
across the remember he was an engineer at a big list everybody that you know and start with your network. I think it's very important. Hey, summertime is coming. I'm going to be looking for a job. Wanted to see what opportunities you all have at that company. Is there any way I can connect with you and we can chat for a few minutes? Start with your network. Number
Hmm.
two, I think LinkedIn is a very good
Oh,
platform.
absolutely. I get
LinkedIn is
everything from
very good.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, very good
Whether it's
platform.
public or private or nonprofit. I don't know what their algorithm is, but that's a great source.
They know how to connect professionals.
Hmm.
And then just the tons of like the influencers that are on LinkedIn. I
Hmm.
think LinkedIn is the number one job board that any job seeker should be involved in. And also Indeed. Indeed's not too bad
Hmm.
either. And we were looking at some of um, our data to see where we're getting candidates, and LinkedIn and Indeed were neck and neck for us. But
Okay.
number one, the networking. Who do you know?
Hmm.
Start there. All your connections, people that you're not connected to on the first level. Reach out to your Michael. I see that you're connected to Erica Parker. She's not connected to me. Can you make an introduction?
Hmm.
I'm going to be looking for a job in May. So the networking is important. Get on LinkedIn, um, Indeed, and then also pay attention.
Hmm.
I hear companies, on the news, or I'll read an article and I'll see a name of a company. I'll Google that company and then go to their career site and then go. You would be surprised. There's so many great organizations
Yeah.
in the US and even abroad. There's so many
Yeah.
great organizations that we are not even aware of. So it's a matter of just being open, paying
Yeah.
attention, thinking outside of the box. We always think about what is it, the FANG. FANG is really, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Google. There's so
Mm.
many more companies outside of those.
Yeah,
Hmm.
So
yeah, I
many, but
agree.
there's
Yeah.
so many companies.
We used to
Um,
have big career fairs back in the day, remember? I don't know if they have those
I haven't,
anymore.
yeah,
Where, you could get all the tech companies,
the retail
automobile
companies,
industry.
yes, all in
Yeah.
one. We
No.
should bring that back because I think it's important.
I know. I think
So
so
we should
too.
start
Being
another
able to
movement.
network, being able to have all
Yeah.
of
Yes.
those companies under one umbrella,
Mhm.
and you just spend the day walking and meeting
Yeah.
professionals at that company, gathering information. Yeah,
And
Mhm.
it's
some hire
definitely
on the
needed.
spot, remember?
Hmm.
Or at least you would get a pre-screen.
Yeah, and you get an interview schedule for
Yep,
next week.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Yes, that's important.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking in terms of tech, I know the technical skills are one. If I'm being interviewed and I'm trying to get into a company, are there certain just common general leadership soft skills that I should display?
The collaboration, like we talked about,
Mm.
the teamwork, because everything you do, you're going to be working with a team. Even if you're an individual contributor and you are the only one at the company doing what you do for that company, you are still going to have to interact with other people. You're
Mhm.
going to have to interact with the receptionist. You're going to have to interact with your manager. You're going to have to interact with the person in the other team if you're working on a project. So collaboration, being open to collaboration and being able to speak about how you've worked on a team with someone else, how
Mhm.
you've brought your pieces to, the puzzle, and you help someone else who brought their pieces, and together you guys made this beautiful
Right.
creation. That's important. Um, being flexible, is important. The
Erica, do you write?
pandemic
Sorry.
the
Do you?
let me say this. The pandemic showed us how important it is for us to be flexible and not be so rigid and stuck in how we do things and how we've always done things, and this is the way we
Mhm.
always want to keep doing things. You have to be flexible, and you have to be able to demonstrate that you are flexible. You're not so rigid where a company cannot use you. We can't use
Mhm.
people that are inflexible.
Mhm.
I agree.
Michael.
Um, I think I lost my train of
Ah,
thought.
oh, sorry. I wanted to get that out because I'm like,
You're
I
right.
see so many people stumble. You would be surprised. I see so many so many people
I believe
are
it.
struggling right now
Mhm.
with this. Leaders are struggling with this world of remote work.
Mhm.
I've had leaders who are just frustrated with the fact that they can't that everybody's not under one roof, and
Mhm.
they're having a
Mhm.
hard time leading them. Respecting them. I'm like, you cannot be so inflexible. This is a new world.
Mhm. Right.
As a leader, you've got to be flexible. And if you have 5 of your people that are working remote, 3 of them that are in the office, you make it work. You
Yeah.
have, um, but
It's a new normal, Erica.
thank you. There
It's
you
a
go.
new
Mhm.
normal. And I know
It's
people's
the
like,
new
we got
normal.
to get back to normal.
This is
I
the
think
new,
this is the new normal.
yes,
It
Yeah.
is.
yes.
It is. Have you? I remember when I was when I was going to Pepperdine, I was in South America, and I was at a company. They said that it was Argentina's equivalent to Google.
Okay.
And they said that they used assessment tools to determine some of the people that they hire. Do you guys use any assessment tools like the DISC
Um,
or the Myers-Briggs to say, like, for example, with the DISC tool, I know
Hmm.
DISC, I know the C's are people that are very analytical and they're
Hmm.
very data driven. And they're people that are like researchers and scientists and people who if you want to really verify something, you just go to a
Hmm.
C and they will tell you,
Right.
the correct answer. They will tell you the data, the facts, and everything. And so sometimes, like this company in Argentina, they said, okay, we need to hire C's because this is the type of work they're doing. Do you
uh,
guys use any of these assessment tools?
So over my career, I've used a few, that I've supported a couple of companies that have won an assessment. One company in California, before they even brought in any of their supervisor or managerial candidates in, we would give them an assessment, a leadership
mm,
assessment based on how they scored. Then they would get the interview. But over the years, I've seen that happen more so at the tail end of the recruiting process. Right now,
Mm.
one of the companies that
oh,
I'm supporting, we use Wonderlic
Mm-hmm.
for our management assessment. In some of our technical roles, we'll use assessments like C++, they want to
mhm,
see how strong
mhm.
they are.
Mm.
But it's not, it happens less frequent now,
Mm-hmm.
and we're finding that those type of assessments are used, and this could be counterproductive, but they're used after the person is hired, and they use them as team building
Okay.
Mm.
opportunities.
Yeah.
So they use them as team building opportunities and professional development opportunities, more so than pre-screening
Yeah.
requirements.
Yeah. I see a lot of them in leadership development programs.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Some more earlier now. Years ago, it used to be later in your career. And
Hmm.
now people are in shock and awe when they get this 360 feedback in terms of their personality, which explains a lot, but they're
Yeah.
just hearing it later in their career. I think it's important to do that. But I did want to talk about there's all this like clickbait postings.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, you hear the words clickbait in a lot of forums,
Yeah.
um, dating forums, you hear them, anything internet. Can you talk a little bit about the words clickbait and what does that
Yeah. It's
mean to the
frustrating.
job? Yeah, the job market.
It's frustrating for the job market. And then you have a lot of people who are um, not confident in the online job process when you get trapped in these clickbait ads.
Mm,
So they'll say, are you looking for the work from home, working remote is the one of the main headings that they use. So they'll ask you to fill out your information, And then what happens is they don't even have the job. They
Mm.
they have they want you from there to click on, are you interested in going back to school to get your degree? What are you, do you have medical insurance? What are you, all these different questions. And what happens is
Mhm.
each time that poor candidate thinks that they're getting closer to seeing that job description, it's another questionnaire that's coming up.
Mm.
And that person who hosted it is getting paid every time they click and every time they put in
Oh.
information.
Mm,
That's why I say it's important to go directly to
To the
the
website.
company website and look at
Mhm.
yeah,
their career site.
that makes
Even
sense.
when you see it posted on LinkedIn and Indeed, those are reputable job boards. Still go to, because you'll find out more about the company. You'll see their leadership. You'll see, past articles and news briefs. But those job ads that pop up on your Instagram and they pop up on your Facebook, or those other type of social media, be very, very
Mhm.
careful. And if after the first question you don't see that job description, stop it, because
Mhm.
Mhm,
it's gonna be a whole nother 30 minutes before you even see anything.
mhm,
So is
Yeah.
it almost like, because I haven't had, thank goodness, this experience. Is it almost like, YouTube, you have to get through sometimes the little commercials before you get to the real YouTube article, or it's even more?
It's even more. It's worse than
Okay.
that. It's worse than
mhm,
that. It's almost taking you down a black hole
Just to get your data,
just to
right?
get your
mhm.
data.
To get
Yeah.
your
They're getting your
information.
data.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. We're talking about that because that could be problematic in terms of identity or just selling your information
Yes,
or
Mhm.
marketing
absolutely.
to you, the
Yeah.
unnecessary marketing that you don't want.
Unnecessary marketing. You make the mistake of clicking on a few of those, and you just want to do the questionnaire. Okay, yeah, I do need insurance. Okay, I'm interested
Mhm.
in. That's when you
Mhm.
get all these phone calls on your cell phone. Hi, these telemarketers saying,
Oh.
calling you about, the new health plan that is coming in your area. It's because you clicked on something,
Oh my
probably
goodness.
trying to look at a job, and then
I'm
it's, yeah.
I'm going to be totally more cognizant of
Yeah,
that.
be very careful with that.
Who knew that was a thing?
Hmm.
I think it's important that you said, Erica, to go to that company website, and
Hmm.
that way you find out much more information about that company.
Yes.
Adrian and I did a panel at the BEA conference not too long ago, and we were talking about interviewing skills.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And when you go to that company's website, I mean, one of the things we said is you need to do research on the company, right? Because you want to know about the company, and
Right.
so that's an excellent way to go to their website, look at some of their news articles, find out some of the who are some of the key players,
Hmm.
and just gain that information, that corporate knowledge, so that when you're speaking in that interview, you can sound like, okay, I'm already part of the team, right?
Right.
Right.
I'm using some of that vocabulary, and so I think that's very
Absolutely.
important. That's great research.
And you know what's even, great about that is, as a job seeker, you're making a decision on if this is the type of company that you want to partner with. Like,
Hmm.
You're
am I,
interviewing
do I
them too,
fit?
right?
Hmm.
Do they have the core values that line up with who I am as a professional?
Hmm.
So it is a two-way street, and I tell candidates that quite often in to ease nerves in the interviewing process. It's like, it's a two-way street. Yes, they're there to ask you questions and you're trying to get in that company, but it's also for you to make a decision of, if this is a company that I want to be a part of. Is this the type
Hmm.
of team that I
Yeah.
want to work for? And be,
Yeah.
work on projects together. So yes, doing as much research as you can is important. I've turned away a couple of positions that didn't line up with
Hmm.
who I was,
Hmm.
as an individual. And I was like, I just can't, look, thinking about it a little bit more, looking at, their company objectives, their social, what they consider a social responsibility, just didn't line up with
Yeah.
who I am. So I had to
Yeah.
pull away. And it's okay to do that.
Right. I agree. That's a good point. You're being interviewed, but you are also doing the interviewing as well.
Yes.
So, I have a question there's a lot about DEIA, right? This is one of those little areas that's a little taboo sometimes, but I think it's important to talk about it.
Hmm.
There's a lot of organizations, I would say, or quite a few. They do a lot of outreach in terms of wanting to ensure they have a diverse workforce.
Right.
So, how do we cross that threshold? as an acquisition, a talent acquisition individual, does that play in? I'm
It
not saying
does.
we're doing quotas, but does that play into the decision making sometimes when you're talking about having a very inclusive and diverse organization?
Yeah. So HR and talent acquisition, we're the champions of diversity and inclusion. Um, we do we do encourage our leaders to make sure
Hmm.
that they understand the importance of being a diverse group, being a diverse organization. We challenge them and find out a little bit about their company. So when I get a job requisition, I do an intake meeting with my
Hmm.
hiring manager. And before I do the intake meeting, I do try to get some data from our HRIS person. Can how many
Okay.
females do we have in that group? What
Mhm.
is the ethnic makeup of that group? Where are we lacking at? So that when I go into that intake meeting with the manager, I'm saying, hey, I've noticed that you have zero females on your team.
Mm,
It's really important that you have some diversity there. And most times, most managers say, yeah, it would be nice. It would,
right. If you
it's
can
always a
find
would be
someone.
nice if you can find. Well, it's not a would be nice. Let's put a strategy in place
Exactly. I love
because the
that.
would be nice is not going to get us anywhere anymore, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We now have to have a strategy. Well, how are we going to attract a
Intentional.
female? What are we going to do? Where are we
Mhm.
going to post? Who are we going to be looking at? What are some so all those things. So I have to be the one who drives that
Mm,
process with the hiring manager and also reminds them because sometimes we'll get the female candidates. We got two or three of them in the process and then we got other candidates, and then when we're deciding who we're going to take to the next level,
mm,
sometimes I have to say, remember,
yeah.
we're looking for a female candidate. Oh yeah,
Mhm.
you're right. You're with
Have
this
you ever
guy.
been told there just aren't any females or it's such a
Oh
small
yes,
population of
I was
females?
told once there just aren't any black in what? Yes, there are. There are. There are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I encourage, my colleagues as well. It's like stay in front of them. You know what we're looking for. You got to keep
Mhm.
directing them, back to this candidate. And
Right.
most times it works, but there are times it doesn't. And there are times where I have to fold too, because at the end of the day, we want the most
The best.
qualified person in the position.
Absolutely. And I always say that to people, ensuring that I have a diverse workforce doesn't negate that.
Thank you.
Like you're not saying, I think sometimes people, well, you just want to hire, more Hispanic people into the organization. But it's not even about that. It's just that I know there is, or there are qualified Hispanic individuals that I would welcome into the organization. I'm a believer that, to the extent in which you're not diverse, you're weak.
Yes.
And we talk all the time about diversity of thought, diversity of backgrounds, diversity of academic institutions, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want all of those voices in the room at the table, bringing
Yes.
forth the best ideas. And so
Absolutely.
that's why, whether you're from the North and the South or wherever, I think you just bring a different perspective. And when you're trying to solve problems, right, which is
Mm-hmm.
what many companies are doing,
Mm-hmm.
solve problems, even if it's in terms of innovation, you want those best ideas in the room.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it kind of goes back to the question or the point that Michael made about the assessment, like the DIS assessment, and
Mhm.
that hiring manager wanting to bring on all C's or all I's. Can
Hmm.
you imagine a team with all D's?
Oh
Everybody
God.
on your team, they're all D,
Right.
or everybody on your team
Was
is
I
a
a D,
high.
Michael? I
No, you
can't
were not a
remember.
D.
Thank goodness.
So I'm a I, right? Can you imagine a whole team with a whole bunch of high I's?
Oh gosh.
Everybody's just gonna be encouraged all the time and just
I
blah
Right.
blah.
know.
Who's the one who? Because you need a D on there. You need
Yeah.
a
Right.
D. You need somebody that can be like, "Shut up, Erica. Come on, we gotta do."
Yeah, exactly.
Brings you
So
back, right?
it
Brings
break
you
it.
back.
Mm.
Hello, and
Mhm.
that's what we have to convey to our leaders. It's like you want different, you want
Hmm.
diversity. You don't
Mhm.
want everybody like you. Can you
Right.
imagine just having a
Right.
whole team of mini
Yes.
yous?
Oh, yeah.
No,
Group think.
you've got to have
Yes.
diversity.
Yeah. So I just want to ask you just something that's a little bit different than what we've been talking about. I've been noticing in the news lately
Mhm.
that about the collapse of a couple banks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and I've been also hearing about various countries, including Brazil, Argentina, Kenya, um, Iran, Russia, and China turning away from using the US dollar.
Mm.
And I've seen an article about Disney laying off 7,000 employees.
Mm.
So when you see things like that, what would you say to the person? Okay, it looks like our economy is maybe going down. People won't be hiring because I'm sure you all do a hiring forecast and all that.
Right.
What would
Mhm.
you say to the person that's looking for a job in a very, very tight economy where people aren't hiring that much?
Well, here's the question. Is it really a tight economy right now? While you see,
It may not be now, but what's
yeah,
coming down the pipe,
yeah.
what they're
And
expecting.
while we see a lot of companies laying off, you've got Amazon that laid off, Tesla,
Mhm.
Meta, you're right,
Some
Disney, I
consulting
just
firms.
saw that. What was that?
I heard some consulting firms recently laid off,
Yeah.
big name consulting firms.
A, a lot of companies are laying off, but I'm not fully surprised about those companies laying off. But because they have a lot of employees, they're
Mm-hmm.
huge. There
Mhm,
Right.
are still thousands of companies who are hiring. Like
mhm,
it has not slowed the industry that I'm in electronics and communications. It has not slowed our industry down.
mhm,
So what I would encourage people is to make sure that you're able to pivot,
Mm-hmm.
mhm,
meaning get out of, if you're working in the entertainment industry, the Disney, the Anheuser-Busch, we may see, because tickets are really really pricey now and people aren't going like they used to.
mhm,
You
Yeah.
mhm,
can't take a family of four to Disneyland anymore, like you
Yeah.
used to. No matter how many discounts California residents or Florida residents have, it's still very expensive. So they're
mhm,
they're suffering quite a bit. If I'm in that industry, I'm looking at, okay, I need to probably pivot and I need a new game plan here.
mhm,
With the
Mm-hmm.
skills that I have,
mhm,
where can I apply my current skills in a different industry?
mhm,
I was
Yeah.
interviewing a candidate from the wine industry just a couple of days ago. Um, and he's a marketing associate. He's worked for wineries all his life,
Mm.
and he's got really good skill set that's transferable, and he's being considered for a role in this electronics media industry that I work for.
mm,
And he said, I see the writing on the wall. He
mhm,
was like, and I need to get out of this industry, and I saw this ad, and that's going to be my biggest challenge is learning the industry, but I've got the skills. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, young man, you have the skills, and that's good that you're thinking forward. Like my skills can be picked up from this
Yes.
sandbox, and I could
mhm.
take them over here. I need to
Yes.
adjust and learn the industry a little bit, but I could still do the same
Yeah,
thing. And I
Absolutely.
think
exactly.
that is my encouragement. If I had a soapbox and I could
Mhm,
talk to everybody who's concerned, they're a little frustrated, worried about it, is
mhm,
now let's look what you got in your toolbox
mhm.
and
So
let's
true.
take them to another workshop. Where
And
can we
be
pivot?
prepared to
Where,
pivot.
where be
Right.
prepared to pivot. Be
Yes.
Well,
prepared to pivot.
and you're spot on with that. And I've often talked to people I mentor, and I've said, it's like, well, where do you go from here? I just want this job, right? And I
Mhm,
said, okay, well, why do you want this job? Well, because it's logically the next job in my trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
But I said this, I said, well, let's talk about skills. And I even do like a little Venn diagram for myself. And I think, so I have these skills in this side. And then if I move to this job or that job or that job, it's more about where do I want to develop additional skills so that
Mm-hmm.
you're marketable, right? You can prove
Yes.
to be adaptive and invaluable. And the word I hear a lot now is fluid. Like I can be fluid in terms of, I'm going to ask Erica to fill in for Michael because Michael's going to go off but Erica, it's not about the skills that she has and the skills she wants. It's about those redeployable skills.
There you go.
mhm,
Whether you're a negotiator, many positions warrant negotiation skills,
Mm-hmm.
right? whether you can, see things on multiple sides. Many positions warrant that. So I tell my mentees all the time, focus on what skills you have, what
Skills, right?
Mhm.
exactly, and what skills you want to develop. And this is so funny because a lot of people miss this. I'm gonna just say this really quickly, in terms of being competent and confident, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you look at a job, you're focusing, oh, well, I just can't. You start, I guess, thinking differently about your ability to be competent, right?
Right,
Mhm.
right.
But when you think of it in terms of, I do possess a lot of skills that are transferable,
Mm-hmm.
that can be leveraged in multiple positions,
Mhm.
then you find yourself being more confident
Confident, yeah.
and going after. And I say this to our women viewers, and there's a lot of data that corroborates this, so it's not anecdotal per se, but there are a lot of women that are more competent than we are confident.
Right.
And so we don't go after the jobs. And
We
so for the
don't.
guy, like the one you referenced that says there aren't
Mm-hmm.
any women in field X from which I
Mm-hmm.
can pull, we see that because there's a lot of data that will say where we are 80% confident, right? Competent, that 20% that we don't know, we focus on it and we don't get in the ring and we don't apply for some of the jobs.
That's a
And
good
so
point.
I've been encouraging, be more competent and confident,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mhm.
Now, my male counterparts,
There you go.
where they
Come
could
on.
easily be 60%
Mm-hmm.
competent, they are 100% confident. You
Mm-hmm.
can't tell them they don't deserve it, right?
Is that across
Absolutely.
all
They go
demographics?
in.
All male candidates across all
A
demographics?
lot of most of them, she's right. You
Yeah,
all come in with, you don't have to check off all. We're worried, women are worried about checking off every single box on that
every block.
qualification before we even apply.
Even
We've
Yes,
black
talked
males?
ourselves out of it because out of the 10 requirements, we don't meet three of them. Three of them we don't
exactly.
have. We will,
Mhm.
should I apply? Oh my goodness. Adrian, can you take a look? What do you think? Do you think I should
Right,
apply for this? Where you all can meet four of them and say,
right,
oh, but I'm confident I can learn the rest of it. And I'm sorry.
right,
And you'll
exactly.
apply. You'll
And
apply.
and you all will take the one skill you have and you've expanded it to be really massive. Oh, because when I was on that project, I did this, and I say that purposefully because I am so fascinated. And when I was at Harvard, I got a whole bunch of articles on this too. But it's so funny because it's like, why do we do that? Because this is what makes it hard in terms of talent acquisition leaders like Erica when and I've heard people say this, like, I can't pick from a population that doesn't exist. So when we're not applying, it makes it difficult for leaders like Erica on the side to lobby, right? And
Mm-hmm.
say,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Jack, hey, Michael, your team really doesn't have any women. The last one was back in 2012. What are we doing in terms of a strategy?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we're not applying for some of these positions where we can have crucial conversations about what the women offer and their ability and deserving qualified, skilled ability to be selected, it does make it a little difficult. So I
Mm-hmm.
just like to get my plug out to say, be very bold and brave in terms of going after it and be equally as confident as
Yes.
I know you are competent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I've seen
Good
it so many
point.
times. And
Me
I did
too.
it one time to myself. I didn't apply for a position, which I should have really, but let's just say the guy's Michael, because I knew Michael was going to get it because I had already sized up all of Michael's skills and racked and stacked them against mine and counted and discounted some of what I brought to
Discounted
the
your
table.
own. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Big mistake in the eloquent words of Julia Roberts.
And then we discount what we bring. Like everybody, you bring, Michael, you bring
Yeah.
your personality, you bring your heart, you bring your passion. Adrian, you bring you to the role, and who you are, passionate, intelligent, articulate, all of those things are weighed when we're looking
Yeah.
at candidates.
Right.
We're looking at
Yeah.
candidates. It's not always about the
Mhm.
skills it's the interpersonal and what do they
Hmm.
bring to the table as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So,
Balance.
I
so
agree.
what percentage does the talent acquisition person uh, what percentage do they have?
As far
Um,
as
as
far as
far
influence,
as influence, yes.
Mhm.
you know, um,
Is
I
it
would,
like 70% or is it more like 30%?
and if we're looking at percentages, I would say I get them in a, I would say 30, forty
Mhm.
percent in the process, because you have to remember the hiring manager, his or her decision weighs very heavily, but
Right.
then they invite other individuals from their
Which
team
is
to be a
good.
part of the panel
Weigh
interview.
in.
So you've got other input put.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say about 30%. I'm in there. The talent acquisition, we're in there with the debrief, we're giving feedback, we're making
I love that.
comments.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because I
absolutely.
know I know you get them in the door, but
hmm
as far as do you continue on? Like, are you part of the panel?
So I'm invited. I have access to the panels,
Mhm,
and depending upon my team and who I'm dealing with,
mhm.
sometimes I will pop in and be a part, insert myself in the panel interview, and maybe ask one question. But I'm
Mhm.
really kind of there to make sure that Jim doesn't ask a crazy question, and
Okay.
this person
Right.
and I'm taking
Yeah.
notes and weigh in, and I've had to check panel members before. Like,
Okay.
why would you
Mm.
ask that question?
Mhm.
That's inappropriate.
Yeah.
Stick with the what the
Recommended.
requirements, the rec. Take a look at
Mhm.
the rec. If you have to ask a question on the requisition, and just reformat it and ask the question instead of a statement. But I've had to coach the panel as well. But then there's some panels that I know that they're going to ask good questions. I trust them. I don't get on the panel interview. I just wait until the
You
debrief,
hear that.
and then I
Yeah,
listen to
okay.
their feedback. But yeah, we're an integral part in the whole recruiting process. We really are.
I
And
love
that's
it.
why I love my job. That's why I love what I do. And I get delight in offers, not because I get a commission, because most times I don't, because I work directly for the company. I get a
Mhm.
Mhm.
salary. I'm not, if you get
Mhm.
hired and you don't get hired, I'm still going to get paid. But
Right.
Mhm.
I just get really excited when I'm able to extend an offer and the offer is accepted, because I know
Mhm.
how important our careers are. I know how important,
Mhm.
job is to our livelihood. So I
Mhm.
get really excited, and I'm passionate about that. And I'm just honored to be in this field. And I fell into it. I fell into the field. I don't think anybody, well, back in, when I was coming up and in college, I never thought about human resource or talent or being a recruiter. I was
Right.
thrown into HR, thrown into, fell into the recruiting. And I was like, hey, I kind of like this. This is
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
good.
And
That
I
sounds
think
like
it's nice
Adrian's
that you.
that sounds like our story, huh? We
Yeah,
getting that task and we just
absolutely.
started loving what we were doing.
Loving it, loving it. And I think too, for me, it's humbling to be able to enable someone to work in his or her story, right?
Yes.
So when you're making these matches and these fit fills, and then you get follow up, like maybe five months later or a year later, and someone's like, "Oh, Miss Parker, this is a great fit for me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing so well." That's important.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and it's important in terms of an ROI, right? You want to place people in organizations
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where ultimately they're thriving, but you also, it's about the company, but you also want to ensure people are happy and they enjoy what they do. I
Absolutely.
think that carries value.
It carries a lot of value,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's, I do stay in contact with a lot of people that I've hired, um, and worked with, over my career. And I do get stories like, I'm still at, XYZ
Yes.
company that you placed me at. Do you remember? And I always do ask, are you happy there? Because
Yeah.
that's what's most important. And
Absolutely.
it's important for people to do what they like, do what they
Mhm.
love, feel excited about going to work every day. So
Absolutely.
I get great joy out of that for sure.
That's phenomenal.
hmm
Michael, do you have anything? We're winding down, viewers and listeners. We got about 5 minutes, and it's such a great conversation. I want to ensure we have some closing remarks time for Miss Parker. She is always a joy to have, a wealth of information. But before we get there, Michael, what are your thoughts in terms of any final thoughts or commentary for our listeners and viewers today?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to thank Erica for joining us and always being availing herself to join and discuss about her passion, about what she loves as far as talent acquisition. It's a part of our passion as well, talent management, talent acquisition, onboarding, skills, skill gap
Mhm.
analysis, hiring
Yep.
the people in the right place at the right time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's always a joy. And I do want to recommend a book. It's called Strength Finders. I don't know if you read that book, Erica. It's a wonderful little.
You're
It's
not getting a kickback. We don't get any kickback.
we don't get any kickback. But I remember when I worked with Adrian years ago, I bought our team a gift. It was a Strength Finders book, and then they
Mhm.
ended up buying the book for the whole team.
I remember
Wow.
that. Yep.
And it's a short read, but it is the premise of the book is to uh, find your passion and work in your passion,
There
work
you
in your
go.
strengths, your natural
Mm-hmm.
strength, and develop those
Absolutely.
strengths. And you can go much further than trying to, close those gaps or where you don't really have any skills. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
a natural boxer, develop that
Mm-hmm.
boxing skill and you'll go a lot further. And then
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the book, it gives you a little assessment. You go to a website and you key in that little code, and it'll tell you what your top 5 strengths are. And I truly believe, and we at TTSC believe, that people can go a lot further and be more successful
Absolutely.
if they work within their strengths. So that's
Mm-hmm.
the first thing I wanted to say, is to promote that little Strength Finders book. But the other thing is that I've truly enjoyed this conversation, and I remember years ago when I was not working in where I wanted to be, and I was scarred, and I was crying, snotting on Adrian's shoulder. I'd have to be at work at 5 o'clock, so 4 o'clock in the morning in San Diego, I'm driving to work, and I'm calling Adrian
Oh, wow.
on the freeway, and Adrian picked up every day, and I'm telling her what's going
Yeah.
on, and she's like, "Oh, poor soul, I know you've been scarred." But but
Good.
things have certainly changed since then, and like you said, it is a joy to see people to work in their passion and to work in
Mm-hmm.
the field that they want to work
Absolutely.
in and be successful. So again, thank you for joining us
You're
today.
welcome. And
Yeah.
thank you for having me. I really enjoy our discussions. We could probably go on another hour if we wanted to. But I just want to say, so you're mentioning the Strength Finders book. I'm actually writing a book as well, and I have not read the Strength Finder, but I
Well,
think
you
I
gotta
need
read
to
it.
because I think we're
Mhm.
we're teetering on the same thing. But my book is "Do What You Like: Pursuing
Mhm.
Passion as a
Hmm.
Career." And
Yes.
I definitely agree that it's important for and it's important and it's possible for an
Hmm.
individual to take their natural talents, abilities, skills, as well as their desires for what they enjoy doing and
Yeah.
building a great career. If you love photography and that's your passion, there's a career opportunity. And you don't
Absolutely.
always have to be everybody is not going to be successful as an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
Everybody's not going to be a business owner. Some people do well working in an
Yeah.
organization.
Hmm. Oh
That's
yeah.
trustful.
There is an opportunity for you to flourish in your passion. So that's most important that I do want to, convey out there is don't
Mhm.
be afraid to pursue your passion as your career. And one of the other things I'm going to piggyback on what Michael said about his relationship with Adrian, it's important to have somebody in your corner.
Mhm.
Oh yes.
I
A
grew up in a church.
mentor, ally,
There
something.
you go. I grew up
Sponsor.
mentor, sponsor,
Mhm.
I grew up in a church and my pastor used to say to the women, you need a come on girl. You need every woman needs a come on girl. That come
I
on girl,
love it.
Adrian, you can do this. Come on, girl. Come on, girl, you can do it.
Oh, I love it.
And I encourage, people to, if you're struggling and you're, having a hard time with interviewing, get you a come on girl, get a coach, get somebody
Mhm.
that you can pick up on the way driving to school, on the way driving to your job at Starbucks and say,
I
I
love it.
really am tired of this job and I want to work at, at what get somebody that's going to encourage you, that's going to
Right.
fuel your fire and fan
Mhm.
you so that you can just explode.
I
So,
love it.
all the
And
best to
hold you
you.
accountable.
Absolutely. And hold you
Accountable.
accountable. We were talking
Yeah.
about my vision board, and Adrian was saying, having a vision board party. And I think it's important for us
Mhm.
to work together when we're creating our vision boards, because you have someone to keep you accountable to what you say you want to do,
Mhm.
where you want to go, what you want to pursue. So it all works together, all of it. So the
For our
passion,
good.
the partnership, the accountability, the mentorship,
Absolutely.
not being afraid to ask for help, not being afraid to ask for a 10-minute, coffee chat with
Yeah.
with a stranger.
Hmm.
Link, that's what LinkedIn is for, is to, we were talking about how great LinkedIn is.
Mhm.
Yeah. I
I've had
agree.
I've had students reach out to me before. I know you don't know me, but I was wondering, can I get on your calendar and can we talk about careers in talent acquisition, because I think I want to be a recruiter. Sure, I love
Oh,
it. Sure.
that's awesome.
So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, we definitely appreciate you. It is extremely important that people learn to master, I think, what you shared as a talent acquisition professional, all the tips and tricks. I tell people success leaves clues. And
Mm.
so resources and knowledge and information, I think, are definitely critical to someone really being successful. So thank you so much for sharing.
You're
We are out of
welcome.
time, viewers and listeners. Okay, so we talked about LinkedIn. How can they reach out to you, learn more about it, make a connection?
So
Looking
Eric,
forward to reading that future book.
thank you. So you can reach out to me, Erica Parker. I'm on LinkedIn, Erica Parker. Just send me a request and I'll connect with you. Okay. And even in it doesn't matter. You don't even have to put where you saw me at. Just Erica Parker. I'm on LinkedIn and you can reach me there.
Thank you so much, Erica.
You're welcome.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, Erica.
listeners and viewers and watchers today. And thank you, Michael. Always amazing. Thank you so much. Have an amazing day. We're out here at TTSC live at STEM City. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.